I was reading a book the other day by Michael Beckwith, Spiritual Liberation, and I came across one term that Michael was speaking about. He calls it radical aliveness. I just loved the sound of that term immediately. I read more and it was just exhilarating. Like he was talking about this level of being where you're just radically alive every second of your life. You're bringing this boldness, this passion, this enthusiasm, this love, this honesty, this authenticity to your life. You're turning up. You're just so fully, completely yourself. What somebody might say, you're just following your soul. You're being driven by that light within you. Now what I can tell you is, I haven't cracked this. I love the idea. I loved it. Just when I read it, it made me, I just allowed myself when I was reading it to come alive, to go, well, wow, what would that be like? For me, oh, wow, I get just so overcome with emotion thinking of how my life could be, how I could turn up in my relationships, how I could be as a husband. If I was radically alive, for most times, the average was pretty radically alive. How much better, how much more loving would I be as a father, as a friend, as a coach, as somebody who puts a video out? How much more can I bring to life? And then it's like, well, if we all just nudge towards radical aliveness, I mean, what does that bring up in you? How would your life be different if you could just allow yourself, give yourself the full permission to turn up radically alive? You know, it brings up the question, well, why don't we all turn up radically alive? The wonderful spiritual teacher, Osho, what he was speaking about, he said that the fear of opinions of others is the greatest fear we have. And like therein lies the greatest obstacle to feeling radically alive, to turning up radically alive, just not holding anything back. I mean, like you're red hot. I mean, you're bubbling hot. If there's 70 trillion cells in your body, they're just all aligned, following your soul, following your inner truth. You're just turning up. You're loving it. You're smiling, you're thinking freely, you're speaking freely, you're acting freely. The fear of the opinions of others is the big one for us all. We've grown up in this society where, I mean, in education we were told, sit down, be quiet, wear the same clothes, don't speak until spoken to. You had to put your hand up to ask permission to go to the toilet, which if I think of it now, it's insane. I mean, a lot of different religions, well, I'd speak from my own experience, religion, they were sort of speaking down. You were a born sinner, you were not really worthy, you had to repent for your whole life for killing somebody that died over 2,000 years ago. I never got that when I was younger, I still don't actually get that. But this was all heaped on top of us. So we weren't really engendered with this feeling of wonder, of a miraculous sense of our own inner worth, of our own power. Like we filled history books full of wonderful examples of wonderful individual human beings, but we haven't educated ourselves beyond the history class of how it was that those people actually turned up. What was the way that they taught? How was it that they access this inner incredible power that they have? We weren't educated that we all have that power. And if you look at anybody that's doing something wonderful in life, there is this, what Michael Beckwith calls a radical aliveness about them. They don't hold back. They're in love with life. They're in love with what they engage with. Whatever their craft, whatever their music, whatever their gift is to the world, they just come alive. Some of these people, they have a radical aliveness when they're doing what they love, and maybe outside of that, it sort of goes off the rails, but they have found something. And when they do that one thing, when they turn up within that their genius zone, That radical aliveness is just bubbling away in the background. That's why some people can pack stadiums as a musician. That's why some artists can just, they sell extraordinary amounts of art and like for massive prices. That's why some people, some teachers just have this almost hypnotic magnetism about them. It's radical aliveness. So there again, I just go. It's like, I don't want to be looking at other people living radical aliveness and me to reach the end of my life not having access to that. And I don't want my family, and I don't want that for you. And I don't think anybody wants that for themselves. Think about it. You know, we get so busy with the humdrum, with the rat race, we don't think about what it means to have this gift of life right now. Someday, some moment, we all meet death. We know this. It's edgy, it's uncomfortable. The rat race doesn't remind us of this. But then the rat race doesn't have our happiness at hand. It doesn't have, that's not what it's interested in. You know, I ask you now, do you want to meet that moment when you're lying on your deathbed? Like you do the saying, near-death experiences, when people have come back from the other side, nearly all of them recount that they have relived their entire life. My question to you now is, you know, do you want to look back and be horrified at the lack of radical aliveness that you've had? Do you want to look back and think, oh my God, all I had was stress and issues and problems, and I was stuck at a level, but I was stuck, I didn't realize there was anything any different? Or do you want to look back and say, yeah, maybe the beginning, maybe the middle, maybe for a good chunk of it, I didn't realize I had this power? But do you not want to look back and say, at some point, I chose different. At some point, I turned up different. At some point, whether you call it radical aliveness, whether you call it spiritual awakening, whether you call it nirvana, whether you call it like the unleashing of the Christ consciousness within you, whatever the words you use that resonate with you, do you not want to think that at some point in this beautiful life story that you're painting, that you're writing every single moment of your days, do you want to look back from your deathbed and say, there was that moment, and that moment I dedicated my life to turning up radically alive, to turning up as my highest self. Feel the fear, do it anyway. Living with passion, living true, aligning what you were saying, what you were thinking, what you were doing, aligning your work, aligning how you're turning up in relationships, to just bringing your highest gift to the world, your joy to the world, your vulnerability to the world, your amazingness to the world, your pains to the world, your honesty to the world, your unique gift to the world. Radical aliveness. I love the idea. I'm really looking forward to just trying to unpack that in everyday life. Hope to see you on the journey too. Have a nice day, guys.